All right, we are live again for another episode of Real Estate Junkies Podcast. What we do with these episodes is we try to highlight exceptional individuals who are in the industry making huge impact. Today we have with us a superstar, and superstar would not be a good term for him. Supernova, let's call him, right? 43 years in the industry. Rick Jiha. He has been, he has seen it all after owning 9 KW franchises to losing everything and starting over at 53. His journey is nothing short of inspiring. So I decided to get him on the podcast and have him share what he have been through over the last 43 years in the industry. Rick is a leader here at EXP Realty, proving that it's never too late to bounce back and conquer, and anything is possible if you only believe. So join us here with Rick's journey into real estate. Rick, it's my pleasure having you in the podcast. Welcome to the podcast, brother.
Wow. Well, thank you very much. Do you pronounce it Syed or Saeed?
Either one works. It's actually Syed, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I am Middle Eastern, so I'm sure I know how to pronounce it correctly if you just show me.
Yeah, for sure.
Nice to get to spend some time with you and your audience. Based on the introduction, it sounds like you probably know my story a little bit or have heard it before, and I certainly appreciate the kind words. I think that the one thing that I know for sure is that everybody has had adversity in their lives and struggles with adversity. I always say everyone listening or anybody on any call is usually just about to go into adversity, right smack in the middle of adversity, or just coming out of adversity. So it's, I heard a wonderful speaker speak a couple weeks ago, and he said, there's no class that we can teach that helps you avoid adversity. It's the one thing that has no bias and has no discrimination. Everybody gets some adversity in their life. So I just, like sharing my story because a couple of things. I think I've learned so much through my failures, and I didn't learn how to fail small. When I failed, I failed on enormous fashions. And I, one of the things that came out of a lot of that, Syed, which is really, really great that you seem to already get that at your very young age, is that out of all pain comes miracles. However, we have to be full of gratitude and full of faith. And faith isn't always about God or religion. It can just be about believing in something that you can't yet see. So when I've had gratitude and faith for the painful times, then they've led to a miracle. And sometimes the miracle's right there, but you don't see it because it's not in the package you expected it to be in. Yeah. EXP itself, as the place where I now sell real estate, was one of those miracles that was in a package I didn't expect it to be in, because, I just needed, I'll give you a quick story. So I was in college to become a dentist. I was getting my biology degree. And in 1979, early 80, I was sending out applications for dental school, and I was rejected by 13 dental schools. Coincidentally, at the same time, I had uncles, aunts, and cousins totaling about 60 or 65 of them. I was in Northern California, a town called Fremont, California. In that surrounding area, I already had about 60, 65 relatives that were selling real estate because I had an uncle get into it in the 60s. And then my family was all Lebanese, so he sent back to Lebanon for my aunts, my mom and my aunt, to encourage their brothers and cousins to come over, learn English, get a driver's license, and then go get a real estate license, in that order. So 1968, a huge bunch of my family moved from Lebanon to the United States and to California, and literally got a job in a truck manufacturing plant to learn English, make some money, be able to qualify to pass the driver's license. You got to remember, in 68, the driver's license test was only in English. Today you go in there and it's in like 19 different languages. But they learned English. And then by 1971, literally 3 years after they got here, they were all selling real estate. I had one uncle, he could barely speak English. He had a broken English accent, broken English in an accent, and he had a bad looking toupee, a really ugly ass toupee. And he was door knocking. He sold 85 homes in his first year in real estate. And of course he got honored by the board. This was in the 70s, right? I was a kid in 71, but we heard all these great stories about our uncles. So even in the late 70s, when I needed a job, I would type up listings in my uncle's office as a way to earn money. So I would always see that my uncles had horrible scribble English, and we'd have to type them up because you'd send them because they got printed in an MLS book. It was great. It was good timing. So once I got rejected by these dental schools, all my family was like, come on, you got to sell real estate with the family. So I got my license in 1980, truly believing that I was never going to sell real estate for a living, that it was going to be a temporary thing until I got accepted to a dental school or whatever. And here I am 43 years later. In the 90s, I realized I didn't even know that I was producing at a level because I didn't have anything to compare it to. My uncles had all gone off to different companies. So I didn't have anything to compare it to, that I was basically doing a really good job. And in 1992, I started to get honored by the local board. And in 1993, I got some really huge awards that I didn't even know I was going to get. And then
so you had 7 years of experience in real estate when I was born.
Yeah, what year were you born?
89.
Oh, wow. Yeah, 9 years. 89 was a good year for me. I sold 67 homes that year. But it's really funny because if you don't have anything to compare it to, sometimes you don't even know that you're doing what's called exceptional work. And in 1993, I got those awards. And then a month later, I got a call from someone who said, hey, we'd like for you to come and run our real estate office. And so remember, I had this company. All my relatives were there. My dad had a full-time job at Lockheed, but he had his real estate license from 1971, and he would do it part-time, nights and weekends after work and stuff. And so all my relatives said, don't go run someone else's office. It's like herding cats. It's like babysitting children. And I'm like, wow, is that how you feel about us? Like, we're in your office. It was kind of, and Dad took me aside one day and he said, son, what's the worst thing that could happen if you go to that company and you run it? And he goes, it's what, 12 agents? You're going to run 12 agents and they want you to grow it? And I said, yeah. And I said, the worst that could happen is I suck at it. And then I come back to Uncle Bill's office. And he goes, how bad is that? How bad is coming back to your family? I said, probably not that bad. He goes, good. Do you want to go to your grave saying, I'm glad I did? Or do you want to go to your grave saying, I wish I had? And I said, of course, I want to say I'm glad I did. He goes, go for it. He was the only one that encouraged me to go for it. And that was the beginning of my brand new life, because starting in 93, I started coaching. I started speaking. I was holding office meetings. I was recruiting people. 93 was the first year I learned how to recruit. Here I am 30 years later, still considered to be a top recruiter. And I coach people on recruiting. But the main thing was that little decision there sort of literally changed the outcome of my life going forward. So I did that, and I took off, and I ended up that company. I was with that company for 9 years. About 4 years in, they sold the company to Cendant, which then became Realogy and is now called Anywhere. And we became a Century 21 franchise. So within a couple of years, I was considered one of the top recruiters in the world for Century 21. And I started to get notoriety for that. And then somebody from KW called me at the end of 2000, and at the end of 99, early 2000, I was not interested, and they kept calling me. So by the end of 2001, I was pretty fed up because we had switched from being a C21 to a Coldwell Banker, and then I had a new boss. And yeah, so long story short, 2001, I started opening up Keller Williams franchises, and I was still selling a ton of real estate. I was a boss, but I had most of my money was coming from selling real estate. And then so I ended up between 2001 and 2006 opening up 9 of them.
Wow, yourself? Without
well, partners? I had partners. Everyone had a couple of different partners. Several of them were the same partners, but a couple of them were different partners. And then 2008 hit. And one thing that I noticed in 2008 was I had picked seven of the offices I picked ended up being the 7 worst cities in the state of California for short sale and foreclosure. So we started hemorrhaging money. It was starting to cost us around $100,000 a month to keep the doors open on 7 of those 9 offices. 2 of them were still doing all right, but they were breaking even, not making a profit. So by 2011, I'm in real estate at that point for 31 years. I'm almost 53 years old, or I am 53 years old. I'm 1.4 million in debt. I have a 440 credit score, and I'm renting
1.4 million in debt.
1.4 million, yes.
Wow.
And I have a 440 credit score, and I'm renting for the first time in my life. In 2008, I started to date the woman who today is my wife. She had just filed bankruptcy and lost her house to short sale. So we were definitely the broke couple. So
you had nothing to lose.
No, we had plenty to gain.
You literally had nothing to lose.
Yeah. So
but
she left.
How from 2008 to 11? I do have a question here. Like when you're going through that, and you've been through that already, so you probably could give a very good insight in this. Right? When you are racking up credit card bills and you see that you're losing $100,000 a month, right? And I feel like some real estate brokerages probably been through that over the last 6 months, right? Some of it, not as bad, right? But a little bit of that, right?
But certainly a lot of smaller independents have definitely.
Yeah. So like what goes through your mind that time? Like what do you, is that a hope thing that you hope that is gonna change, or?
No, we immediately set our goals on doing whatever we needed to do to get somebody else to take over those franchises. All of my partners, we all agreed in those 7 offices, let's find somebody. The very best case of those 7 was we were able to transfer that office with a $2,500 gain, $2,500 split among 4 partners. That was the very best case. So it was almost 0-0. But then the main 6 more, there was so much losses in rent owed. We were able to get the salary part taken care of. Nobody wanted to file bankruptcy and not honor your debts. So wow. I'd say that the biggest debt was unpaid rent. And we all walked away with different personal guarantees of what rent we had to pay. And then all it was, and we finally did.
Yeah. Okay. I think it was the signal thing. So you were saying you finally.
So we finally able to find one lady who took 4 of them.
In 2011.
No, we're talking. Yeah. This is between 2010 and 11. This was all happening, and then then another KW office took one or took it over and blended it into theirs. So essentially by 2011-12, I had just the 2 left, but I was no longer in charge of them. So I could focus on selling and really starting to work hard. Yeah. My wife left real estate. She was a real estate agent. She left in 2008 when we started dating, and she went into the network marketing industry and was succeeding quickly because, there's a certain thing about desperation that pushes you to a level you've never been pushed. And making calls and knocking on doors no longer feels near as uncomfortable as losing everything, right?
Yeah.
And so just for your audience and for myself to say it out loud, because I have to remember this every day, is that people don't change until the pain of changing is less than the pain of staying the same. So the pain of staying the same gets so big that you go, I got to change. I got to do things differently. And so for me, I can remember it was a Friday and I had to show some property, and I have this Volvo SUV that has 200,000 miles on it with a bald front right tire. And I pull into a gas station, and by then my credit cards are all cut off. I can only love off my debit card, and my debit card account was $13. I needed about at least 50 to get 2/3 of a tank. And I go, I got this bag of quarters in my thing that I use for parking meters. And I look in there, and the quarters were down to just pennies and nickels. So that wasn't going to work. And then I found something that looked like a Chevron credit card. And I go, I don't have a Chevron credit card. And I looked at it closely. It was a $50 Chevron gas gift card that the Women's Council of Realtors had given me 2 weeks before for having done a speech. And I was so emotional that was the only way I was going to fill up my gas that I literally put my head down on my steering wheel and started crying. I'm all alone at a Valero gas station. I remember it like it was just the other day. And I said, and I swore at myself, I said, this is never effing going to happen again. And I went to that appointment. I went home living alone in my apartment. And I woke up the next morning and I said, That's it. I'm going to go back to the old fashioned ways. I went door knocking that day, picked up 2 listing leads, door knocking. While I was door knocking, an old client of mine called. He says, Rick, I got to sell my house. His house was worth about 800 and he wanted to buy for about 1.2. So I go, okay, there's 2 million in business. And I just started rolling again. At that point, literally, I was a real estate agent, but I had been so focused on these offices that it took my mind off of what I knew how to do very well, which was selling. And I like to make sure that I say, since we have a few minutes, if it's okay,
Sure, yeah.
if I looked at my decisions that I'd been making, you think about it, I was making ego-based decisions so that I could look good. I owned offices. I was the top speaker and trainer for Keller Williams for 9 of the 14 years I was there, traveling the US and Canada, speaking for them, not making much money speaking, but just got a lot of accolades and kudos, which felt good to the ego. And sometimes when you start to notice the difference between ego-based decisions and joy-based decisions, you start to realize that if it truly is based in joy, you'll go through some discomfort so you can have all that joy at the end of it. So someone says, I don't like lead generating. I go, well, what if lead generation gets you more money, and more money gets you more time with your wife, or more money gets you more time with your kids, right? And that's where the joy comes from. So I really started to pay attention to making decisions based on joy.
Yeah. So some of the things that you mentioned relates to me so strongly. Like I say this, I get on coaching calls with agents all the time, and I try to identify what are their pain points and what are their desires. And a lot of times desire is way bigger than their pain points. Like, hey, what are the consequences of you not changing anything? And some of them like nothing. And I'm like, I sometimes I think to my mind, but sometimes I just say it straight up, depending on how they say it, right? I'm like, if you don't have nothing to lose, you're not gonna do anything. Even if I gave you all the ways, gave you everything, you're not gonna change anything. And something about pain, and I say this a lot, we just had 4 months ago, we had a newborn baby, and it came to my mind is that, look, if we were not, life is pain. That's how we came to this world.
Yeah.
If life is not meant to be painful, we would have stayed in our womb, right? Hey, we would have stayed there. And that's how, every change that happens in our life comes through pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so I just got back to work selling real estate. My wife and I, we were still dating. We moved in together to save 2 rents and brought 2 rents down to 1. It was great. And I started to find happiness that I never thought I'd have while being broke, while driving a used Chevy Volt, right? Like I always had attached, I could see it. I attached it to ego-based things like what kind of car did you drive? What kind of house did you live in? Did you own a home? Did you live in the better neighborhood? What school did your kids do? And all of that was gone on me then. All I cared about was I had an amazing woman that loved me. I loved her. We worked hard together. We were renting. We loved where we rented. It was a good neighborhood. And we had very inexpensive cars that we bought used, and we saved and worked hard and paid off debt. In 2015, I was able to get rid of my very last Keller Williams office, and I left. I left Keller Williams, and I stuck my license. I had firmly believed, and this is something for some of your audience, this is a personal, humble opinion, that the franchise model is broken. The franchise model works very well for the franchisor, but often the franchisee, and I know some very successful franchisees, but usually they're in the top 7 or 8% of all the franchisees. So you look at 90 to 93% of them are not going to succeed at a level that will pay their debt. So that's just, again, my humble opinion. And it's based, yes, on my experience, but also the experience of literally thousands of other franchisees that I've spoken to from all companies. So I just stuck my license with a friend. She had a tiny little company with 2 agents in it. I said, just leave me alone. I want to go sell my houses. That's what I was looking for, autonomy. Leave me alone. I got to sell houses. I would focus like this. Built my team back up to 3 or 4 buyers agents. And then in 2016, towards the end of the year, my buddy Brent Gove called me and he said, man, have you heard of this EXP thing? And I'm like, Brent, I want to
don't talk to me about franchises.
Yeah. And he yelled at me. He said, I thought you said you knew about it. I go, I do. And he goes, well, you're full of crap, because if you knew about it, you'd know it's not a franchise. And I said, it's not? Like literally, that made me listen. And he goes, no, it's a brokerage. And I said, He goes, when can I talk to you about it? And it was like Thursday, and I didn't really even want to talk to him about it. I was happy. Just leave me alone. I'm selling houses, paying off my debt. So I booked 8 a.m. that following Sunday morning. My wife was out of town, and he ended up showing me a webinar, and literally on the last slide of the webinar, I said, I'm in. And my wife was out of town. I said, I'm not going to move or change anything until my wife comes back and I run it by her. We'd been married, a year and a half by then. And so the fact is we
I got married around the same time.
Yeah. So we joined in January of 2017. There was 2,400 agents in the company. And Brent really got busy. As you can tell, Brent went off and became a crazy recruiting guy. I was still busy handling lawsuits with Keller Williams, and I was really focused on sales, and I didn't recruit as much as I could or could have that I know how to do. But so still over the past, I focused on rebuilding my team still. And by the end of, December 30th of 2018, my wife and I paid off our final debt. And of course, when I came to EXP, here's some major reasons I came. I don't know is it okay to talk about this on your podcast?
I love talking about EXP.
So I came because number one, the autonomy. I want to be left alone to sell. They're like, no offices, no office meetings, and I'm like, don't even, just let me. Number two, 80, 20 to 16 grand. I'd been in real estate at that point, but for 37 years already, and I'd never paid a broker that little. So I'm like, that's good. And then the thing I'd lost my retirement savings trying to save my offices. So I like that I could buy stock with 5% of my commission at a 10% discount. I said that, because I could sell that the next day and make 10% on my money, right? That was a no-brainer. So I said, I'm going to do that on every single deal. And I sell between 60 and 100 houses a year. So I'm not like a slacker. So, and we have a good high average sale price. So if you have a high average sale price, your commissions are higher. So 5% of your commission is going to buy you more stock than some guy selling a house in Ohio, right? So, so we're 4 years in, Syed, and my wife taps me on the shoulder and says, you're not going to believe this. So we finished paying our debt off in 2018. So we were pretty excited. And we're 4 years in, and my wife taps me on the shoulder and says, honey, do you know how much? Because I had earned the Icon Award all 4 years I was there. So, and got a lot of free stock. And I go, how much is it all worth? And she said, $3.5 million.
Wow.
And I literally fell on the floor and started crying like a baby. And she said, what's wrong? And I said, I can't believe, I still get emotional. I said, I can't believe it. And all I did is look at her and I go, can we buy a house now? Because we've been renting.
Wow.
And we bought, we decided that we would keep renting that house because we were financially strong, and buy our dream home a couple of hours away on the coast. And so we went out, looked around, and within a couple of weeks, we were in contract for a gorgeous high-rise condo overlooking the ocean. And we closed escrow on it in April of 2021. And today, as we look, we have a little over, right around 3,000 people in our EXP organization.
Amazing.
I have my sales team, and it's been very rewarding. What I always like to tell people is, EXP doesn't get credit for my hard work, right? Syed, look what you're doing. You're selling, you've got a team, you're running a coaching business. EXP doesn't get credit for your ingenuity, your creativity, but what they do get credit for is providing you a platform where your efforts can be multiplied and compounded, right? Who would have ever imagined? I had 9 Keller Williams offices with 1,000 agents, and I went to bed every night worrying about going broke, worrying about my agents. Now I have 3.
That's a lot of work for only 1,000 agents versus.
Now I have over 3,000 agents, and I go to bed smiling every night. And I'm not worried about them because I'm supplying them with training and coaching and every avenue they need to build their dreams, not my way, but whatever they want. That's what we say. What do you want? Let me help you get it. Mm-hmm. And even Mark Twain, one of his most famous quotes was, I can teach anybody to get what they want if I could just find somebody who knew. And that's the thing, is helping people picture, visualize, grasp what it is they're going after. So.
Wow. So I feel like I'm talking to agents all over the country every single day. Like, I have 2 more calls today after this. Like, I'm consulting, trying to see what problems they have, see if I can solve that problem. And I probably take 24 to 30 calls a week like that. And one thing I find very common right now in the marketplace with the situations agents are in right now are very similar not probably at your level, $1.4 million in debt, but there are agents out there racking up debt, right? They're $30,000, $40,000 in debt.
Yeah.
And what I find after talking to them is that burden of debt and not knowing how they're going to get out of it paralyzes them, right? Like that's usually the same pattern across the board. Is that I'm like after talking to them for a while, digging, comes down to like I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do is because I'm just mentally paralyzed. So tell us, how does that feel and how do you get out of that? Like how do you operate with that level of burden on your shoulder?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And it's so funny because I think God puts people in your path. You're like the fourth or fifth person that's asked that question in the last 2 months, but here it's been years since this journey, and very few people ever ask the question, how did you operate with that kind of burden? But I can remember that Saturday morning that I woke up. My wife today, who was my girlfriend then, used to say, how do you live in that skanky apartment? So think about the term skanky, right? Like that doesn't give you a good picture in your mind, right? But the one thing that really struck my mind was that morning, several things were going through my head while I was laying in bed trying to get up. Because what do we want to do? Pull the covers over our head and hope that the world goes away. And what I started thinking about was, what kind of example am I to my two sons? So that was a driving force right there, right? How will I have anything ever again if I just stay here and feel sorry for myself, right? And I've done it before, I can do it again. So those were the kinds of things going through my head, and nothing miraculous about that. I mean, I heard, I was watching a show the other day called Underrated on Apple TV about Steph Curry's life, right? And how everybody thought he was too small, not strong enough, he'd never be an NBA player, right? And it was a really good story, and it hit home because it reminded me of how we lose faith in ourselves. It doesn't matter what everybody else is saying. We already got enough bad faith in ourselves, how we can ever do anything. So it was those thoughts that really drove me, mostly being an example to my sons. And then I was in love with Casey, and I thought, gosh, if Casey and I are going to stay together, I want to build a life. Right? And money isn't a why, but it is a tool that you use to fund your why. So I know if I need to get some money, then I'm not going to go out and get a job right now because I don't know that I have any skills that are hireable, but I did know how to sell real estate. Yeah. I knew how to door knock. I knew how to hold open houses successfully. So I went back to doing all these things that worked, calling people, checking in on them. And guess what? Business started to come again, and I built from there. So I've had a lot of this in my career, and now I've built something that can be a lot less like this and more just kind of like this.
Yeah. So that's interesting perspective, right? And to me, it's all about perspective. What you said about I had done it before and I could do it again, right? So a lot of people with that same thing, right, look at it in a negative way. Oh, I've done it before, but I lost it all. How am I going to do it again, right? Does that make sense? Oh, there you go. We got you back. So what I was saying is that a lot of people take that same mindset that you have, that I had done it before, I could do it again. And they say, I've done it before, I lost it all. How am I going to do it again? Right. So it's all about perspective, the way you look at it. And I truly believe.
You're so right. And it's funny, I never thought of that. So good point on your part, that people that have done it before often don't feel like they could do the same thing over again. And some of it is just, they feel like they got lucky the first time. And my dad and my mom, the one thing, my mother was 100% Lebanese, born and raised in Lebanon and came here. My dad was 100% Lebanese, but born here. But his dad died when he was 5. So he had to go out and help his brothers and sisters earn enough money to raise the family. So I came from a family with a really good work ethic. And I came from a family with a lot of love. Like everybody wanted to love on you and hug on you. But I can tell you this about, I know my Hispanic friends are the same. My Chinese friends are the same. My Indian friends are the same. Every nationality I've met where there's 100%, they were all taught to take care of others before they take care of themselves. And that is very noble. And at the same time, it can lead to you not taking care of yourself. And what I had to learn was not to blame my parents, that my parents never said, don't take care of yourself. They just never said, take care of yourself. They always said, take care of your sisters, take care of your brothers, make sure your parents are happy, things like that. There was a point where I was, 30 pounds for a good part of my life, heavier than I am now, because I wasn't taking care of me. I had high blood pressure, high cholesterol, I was overweight. I didn't work out regularly. I wanted to eat everything in sight because eating was a way of managing all the other pressure for me, because Middle Eastern people love to eat. And so when I started taking care of me, when I started to get healthy and happy and resourceful, then I could help a lot more people than I could when I was in this lesser state. And that's what I find. I tell people now, I go, please. And that was, I don't know, are you familiar with the Build conference that just went on in San Antonio? Yeah. So
we had a newborn baby, but yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. And my wife got to speak for 7 or 8 minutes, and I spoke for 7 minutes. That's the message I delivered. I said, look, guys, everything you heard here today is amazing. But if you're not looking out for you first, you're never going to implement it.
Yeah.
So put you first, lose weight, take care of yourself, check on your relationships, make sure they're strong and solid, do what's necessary, and work on you. And then you'll help thousands of people a day after that. So it is very important that you say, gosh, I got to get out there. I got to make some money. I got to feel good about myself. Because once you start feeling good about yourself, then you can help so many more people feel good about themselves.
Yeah. And this is, I just feel like you're me in an older body. This is exactly what I teach. I actually, in my coaching program, I have a module on living healthy. And I wasn't healthy most of my life. Up until 2020, I caught COVID November of 2020. I was stuck in the basement because I didn't want to get my wife and my son sick. And after I recovered, after those 3 weeks, I get on the scale. I was 199 pounds.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, this has to change. It's not even, and 2020 was my best year in real estate. My, 7th year in real estate. And it was like the best year I have had. So we had money. Money wasn't a problem. Finances wasn't a problem. But I looked at myself. I was like, that's not how I want to live. I don't even care about the money anymore.
Yeah.
If this is who I'm going to become moving forward,
Yeah.
So I lost 40 pounds in 4 months. It wasn't very healthy. I didn't work out. I literally cut down sugar, cut down carbs, cut down white carbs, and like just went straight natural preservatives and like fast food. Just cut down everything and get back to basics. Yeah, I think you have some signal issues, but like I know I appreciate your time, but I do have to get through a couple more questions here.
Yeah.
So I do. You have been through. You started real estate 82, right?
1980.
80. So you officially you're the oldest realtor I have in the podcast. Okay. Person older than you was 27 years old in the industry. So you're definitely like you're probably gonna hold this record for a while. So the way when you started the industry was today is completely different, right?
Absolutely,
And yes, your focus is probably not as much on production, but you see what the industry is like, right?
Yeah.
And you have seen all the ups and downs and all the innovation that has happened in the industry. What are your thoughts in that? Like, how is the industry different as far as when it comes to becoming successful as a real estate agent or a broker?
Well, I think, there were certain milestones that I remember. I remember in 1992, 12 years into the business, people started using email, right? And it was kind of strange to people, and everybody had DOS computers. And I remember in 1980, when I got my license, we were still using the MLS book, the MLS printout book. So in 1991, when they started having you take the phone and put it on a cradle and you put Velcro over it and you dial a number and you'd hear it go and it would connect, and then you'd see these dots show up on a black screen. That was how we were signing into the MLS pretty early on when it was new to that. And everybody was voting that they didn't get rid of books, right? Like, well, what do we need the books for now, right? So you got to admit, I was younger than the older guys then, right? That really wanted to hold on to the books. We need the books, right? But by the time the book came out, so many of those were sold, and it was just not up to date.
Yeah.
Then the next big thing was IDX. I remember buying a wireless router modem that connected to my laptop. My laptop weighed 22 pounds from Acer. It was that thick. Because I always wanted to be on top of technology, always. That, you know, and I'm not techie, but I thought I need the technology to be on the cutting edge. I can remember holding an open house in the late 90s where I had this thing called the Rabbit stuck to the side of my thing, and it had an antenna that went up, and you know, you had to have a plug. You couldn't do this, you know, with a battery. And I would literally knock people's socks off by opening up the MLS while we were at an open house. Nobody had ever done that, right? So there was a lot of technological sort of things. IDX, when IDX first came out, wow, that was a big deal because we used to use the line, I can show you how I can let you have access to the MLS as if you were a real estate agent yourself. And people go, really? I can have that? I go, yeah. And you'd set them up on a drip, right? That was all new, right? So I was paying for everything that new came out. But I think probably the biggest thing that I am grasping to that I'm not completely in right now is I think people are not grasping video enough. Certainly you know, you look at a guy like me who's 43 years in the business, I'm a little over 65 years old. Most of the guys that have my years and my age are going like, I'll take what comes my way. No freaking way, baby. All the time. And then my 37-year-old son moved to LA 14 years ago, built a life down there. I'm up in Northern California. Well, he's moving back now and wants to get into real estate with me.
Wow.
So
that's exciting.
Yeah. So we've been going door knocking again, like I did when he was a kid. Him and his brother used to come door knocking with me in the neighborhood he grew up in. So we're back in that neighborhood door knocking. We went to the same high school in that neighborhood, both of us. So it's getting really good results. We picked up 13 million in leads in two outings, you know, June and July, and then we'll go again in August, and we're going to go every month. So I still think first people don't grasp how simple it is. There's some basics that you can use, and they get all lost. Well, look, I got this email that said they could show me how to use YouTube or LinkedIn or TikTok or whatever. Good. There's a million ways. Pick one. Pick one and do it consistently, and you'll earn a lot of business. But we teach that you've got to have 4 pillars of income in your real estate business. So I'm really good at referrals from agents to agents. So I get a lot of agent referrals. I'm really good at referrals from my clientele, but I get a lot less of those than I do these. But these don't cost me 25% or 30% referral fee. These do, right? So, but I'm really good at door knocking. So we're going to farm. Farming is different than prospecting. There's all these different things. Well, I can teach you, but if you're not going to just do one thing and quit paying attention to the noise coming through your email box, just do one freaking thing. If you sat on the phone all day and just called people you know and didn't talk real estate, you just said, how are you doing? And let them talk about themselves, you get tons of real estate appointments. Because it's something, hey, what are you doing? You go, oh, you sell real estate? I forgot you sell real estate. I got a sister that needs something, right? Like just have conversations and be freaking consistent. And people don't get it. They're just, oh, I got to do YouTube. Well, look, everything takes time and hours. You're going to do YouTube, it's going to be 3-4 hours. Well, in the same 3-4 hours, I might knock on 150 doors. Good. You could do one YouTube and maybe get 200 or 300 people to watch it. That's great.
Yeah.
Pick something.
Yeah.
So I've seen all these technological changes, but what I see that stays the same among realtors?
Hard work.
No, yeah. The lack of hard work, the lack of willingness to do one thing and do it well. And people make fun of, I didn't get into real estate to make calls. I didn't get into real estate to door knock and get okay, do something. Do one thing. I don't care. If you're good at YouTube, do it. And you don't even have to be good at YouTube. Just put the camera in your face, right? I tell my agents to hold open houses. If you get a phone number at an open house, you put that phone number in your phone and you don't text them, you record a video. You go, hey, thanks for coming to my open house today. I got several others that are similar. I know you didn't like this one, like that's it.
And good news is, for people that may not have gotten in YouTube video, good news is right now with AI, you could skip video. With AI, you could skip video. You could have AI create an avatar of you, and you can literally type in what you wanted to say, and it will copy your voice and say it. That's going to become very available. Now you have to be a little advanced in technology to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I would say a matter of months, it'll be available to you. You just upload a picture of you into the system, and it'll automatically create your avatar, and you literally give it scripts, and it's gonna say what you want it to say. That's That's possible right now.
Yeah.
Technology is amazing,
Yeah.
and it's probably going to change. It changed the real estate industry, where real estate agents, where they were the sole provider of listings. Like if they anyone didn't have access to MLS listings, we control the industry.
Yeah.
To our We are kind of like the Uber drivers now, right? We go
Yeah.
open the doors because the client already knows where is the listing and everything, right? So
Yeah.
we're losing control. Where do you see this going? And with the Department of Justice, this new thing coming out right now, buyer agency is supposed to be going away. Where do you see the industry going right now?
I'm not as forward thinking as others. I can just say that I don't, even with all that's going on, separating out the word agency doesn't change the fact that a lot of consumers are still uncomfortable with you representing the seller and the buyer. I base everything I do based on how my clients talk to me, and I have clients that are 19 years old, and I have clients that are 89 years old. And what they all want is kind of the same thing. They want to be treated respectfully. They want their needs handled. So I think it's so important that we stop and say, I can't be the answer to your prayers until I know what you're praying for. And then the second thing that I believe very firmly is we need to say this more. People don't care how much I know until they know how much I care. Like if we start using those two sentences, I can't be the answer to your prayers, so I know what you're praying for. When I go into a listing appointment, I go, before we get started, can I ask, would you mind telling me what are the four most important things that you are looking for when you hire a realtor?
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how dramatically different the answers are from
Yes.
couple to couple, because they have different value systems. They have different behavioral styles. So you don't know. So I don't think the realtor is going away. I just think the realtor is going to have to sharpen their skills. I think if you're just sitting on your back and while your clients are searching Zillow, then bad for you. But I'm going to keep in touch with my people, because I'm going to keep them off of Zillow, and I'm going to keep them off of the news stations as much as possible. Every time I send out an email or one of my emails that go out twice a month to my database, I say these words. Hey, remember, don't watch the news to learn about real estate. Call me. The news doesn't know anything about what's going on in your backyard. I do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So,
Sure. Yeah. And last question to you: Where are you going with this? Where is this wagon? Where is this Volvo?
Yeah.
Going?
I read a book by Simon Sinek about 4 years ago called The Infinite Game. And that book really affected me, because he said, do you want to build a business that's successful while you're alive, or do you want to build a business that can be successful? So I want to see the Rick Jihad team go in long past my death and help other people, help the clientele and the people we serve. Even our mission statement says to improve the lives of all we serve. That's the mission statement of the Rick Jihad real estate team. But with my son coming in, he will be the third generation of realtors. So my dad, then me, then him. And all, we're saying that in our advertisement. We're from a town called Fremont, California. Everybody knows my family. My mom had a restaurant there in that town for 40 years. So there's a lot of ways to make the business be infinite with or without me. So that's one of my dreams. And to continue to build with EXP such that I build sort of a legacy such that my grandson's kids, that I will probably be gone by the time he has kids, will benefit from what I did. And Ed Milet said it in the talk once. He said, who's the one person that changed the generational, generation after generational of being mediocre, being average? And I want to be the one that changes that going forward. So.
Wow. And with anyone who is interested in connecting with you, what are you guys doing as part of your, being part of your organization? What, like, if you could quickly say, what do you provide for agents who want to be part of your organization?
Yeah, so anybody that comes to us, we believe in, we can't be the answer to your prayers, so we know what you're praying for. So we say, tell us what you'd like to build, and then we'll show you the tools that we already have to help you build that. Like if you want to sell more houses, great. Do you want to build leverage into that? So we're going to teach you from being a buyer and a seller's agent to mostly being a listing agent and passing out your buyers to buyers team and build a team. We'll show you how to do that. People don't do it because they don't understand it. And then they say, I don't want to manage people. You don't get it. You must not understand the process if that's your first reflection, is I want to manage people. if they say, oh, I want to earn a lot of stock, so I have some money in the bank and I want to earn some rev share, plus I don't ever want to stop selling, I go, we'll show you how to manage all of that at one time. Because people have a general scarcity attitude. They don't know it, because I didn't know it. And I'm
you definitely know now.
Yeah. So you say, well, what's a scarcity? Well, we believe or. And so if you have an abundant attitude, I can have this and I can have that. I can succeed at this while I'm succeeding at this. So a lady today asked me, she goes, how are you effective at recruiting? I said, I spend part of my day lead generating for listings, and I spend part of my day lead generating for agents who might be interested in talking to me about EXP. Simple as that. I said, lead generating is one thing, lead follow-up is another, and it doesn't matter whether I'm doing it for listings or for recruits. You got to follow the same.
Yeah, that's how I look at it. Amazing. Thank you, Rick. I appreciate you again. Definitely.
Thank you. So where are you on the East Coast, by the way?
Michigan. I'm in Cartwell's downline.
Oh, okay, cool. That's good. And then where are you? What town in Michigan?
Sterling Heights.
Oh, I know where that's at. Cool. You're not far from Dearborn, where I get some really good Lebanese food.
Yeah, we got some Lebanese food here actually in Sterling Heights. A good number of Lebanese people community is also in Sterling Heights. So
and I love the Arabic writing behind you.
Yeah, that's the opening chapter of Quran.
I know that.
Yeah.
Very similar to what's on the Saudi Arabian flag, actually.
Yeah, that's the Shahada. That's the testament of faith. Yep.
I lived in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia for 6 years, so I was very.
Oh, wow. I grew up there 13 years.
Oh, Jeddah. In Jeddah?
Yeah.
Wow. I was there a little before you. It was 1965 to 1971, but yeah. So.
Wow. A lot of commonalities. We definitely got to get connected, definitely got to get together. Yeah. And I'd love to collaborate with you, with your organization in the future. Anything that I can do for you, feel free to reach out. And those of you who want to get connected with Rick is everywhere. Honestly, I looked him up. He's in all social media. I was kind of surprised. But again, it's a pleasure having you. And I would love to watch you do all the things that you're doing together and giving back to the community.
Thank you very much, Saeed. Shukran wa Allah ma'ak.
Thank you.